Croeso, bore da pawb. Emily Dewey. Welcome, good morning all. I'm Emily, I'm from Public Health Wales and I'll be taking you through this session today. So thank you so much for joining us for the first in a series of Cynefin events. So over the next 9 months, we will be hosting a number of webinars, in-person events and discussions to really explore how placing arts and culture as a frontline service for health and care can really help to deliver a step change for public health in Wales. So really delighted so many of you are joining us today. If you've just joined, please do feel free to use the chat function to say hello and to ask questions throughout the event. We'll be monitoring that both during the event and having a look at it after the event. So all comments welcome in the chat. So as I say, we're having a series of events as this Cynefin project to have a creative health review for Wales. We'll be really having discussions to hear from leaders in the arts and in the health sector to learn from evidence, lived experience, to really look at how we can shape practical recommendations for upping the ante for arts and health in Wales as we go forward. We're a multi-partner project, so this brings together and is facilitated by WHON, the Wales Arts and for Health and Wellbeing Network, Public Health Wales, Arts Council Wales and the Wellbeing of Future Generations Office. And we're really grateful for the funding received from the Arts and Humanities Research Council as part of their Creative Communities Collab Policy Network Awards, which has enabled us to deliver this programme and bring together such a fantastic range of speakers for you. We're also joined throughout this process by 10 champions, Cynefin champions, who will be listening to and responding to the evidence and the lived experience that we hear throughout these sessions. Great mix of champions from across different sectors, including the CMO for Wales, the Chief Medical Officer for Wales, the National Poet of Wales, health board practitioners, Director of Public Health, academics and writers who specialise in evaluating health improvement interventions, community interventions, the experiences of young people and experiences of identity and representation. So we're really delighted to have you all on board with us. So thank you to those who have agreed to be champions and follow us on this journey. And thank you to all of those that have joined today. So if you've only just joined, please note you will be muted and videos will be off unless you're invited to speak, but please feel free to use the chat for questions and comments throughout and do say an initial hello in the chat. We will have some Q&A sessions within this discussion and we have a translator available. So you can set your preferred language if you go to More, the 3 dots at the top of the screen, and then go to Speech and Language, or Language and Speech. Select that and then you'll see an option to select your interpretation language, so either English and Welsh. So please feel free to submit questions in the chat in Welsh. Those will be read out and translated, and if any of our contributors want to respond in Welsh, you are very welcome to do so, and that will be translated into English for those who select that as your preferred language. Other bits of housekeeping was really just to say we have a Slido function supporting us to capture some feedback and data from you all. So please scan the QR code that is showing on your screen now, or go to slido.com and enter that code that is showing 4128718. And please respond to question 1. And then as we go through the programme, we will move on to other questions for you to respond to. So I'll just give you all a minute to do that before we go to our first section, in which we'll hear from two speakers. Dr. Liz Gregory, who is a really experienced clinical psychologist who's worked in the NHS and is now the lead for Wales for the Parent Infant Foundation. And she'll be talking about why arts and creativity are so important in the early years to help improve outcomes and experiences for babies, toddlers, caregivers, and really think about those relationships between them. We'll then have briefly hear from Yvonne Farquharson, and have a short film relating to the Melodies for Mums initiative by Breathe Arts. So hopefully you've all managed to submit your Slido questions and grab that QR code. Those that have just joined, a few seconds to quickly scan the QR code or go to slido.com. We'll be using this to capture information throughout the session, so please do that. And we'll hand over now to Dr. Liz Gregory. Welcome, and thank you very much for being with us today.
Diolch yn fawr. I'll just share my slides. Okay. Bore da pawb. It's such a privilege to open the first of Cynefin's events today, which focuses on how the arts can contribute to the best start in life. I have a lot to say in just 10 minutes, so I'm going to whiz through my slides, but I'm happy to follow up with anyone who's interested in learning more detail. There's a clear consensus about the critical period of brain development that happens during the first 1,000 days, making it a unique, it's hot, so things keep jumping all over the place, making it a unique and golden opportunity to make a difference to babies, both now and as they grow throughout the life course. We also know that effecting change is much easier during this window. It's never too late, of course, but more can be achieved more easily for babies. And there's a greater return on investment as demonstrated by this graph known as the Heckman curve. Most importantly, investing in babies is not just nice to have. The Nurturing Families Report, one of the most in-depth assessments of the emotional needs of babies in the UK, was conducted in Cyntaf, Maganog. It highlighted that 20% of babies in the region are at risk of disorganised attachment, meaning these babies are living in fear and distress right now, and at a greater risk of experiencing difficulties across a whole range of domains and life outcomes, from mental health, physical health, relationships, and employment. And for the babies most at risk, the data is stark, particularly this last statistic. Babies are 8 times more likely to be killed than older children. And of course, we've had the most dreadful news recently about one such example. But we also know that nurturing responsive relationships are a hugely protective factor in a baby's life. That's the reason why at the Parent Foundation we developed the bedair awareness raising training, Building Early Attuned Relationships. It's a 3-hour co-produced in-person training for anyone working and volunteering during the first 1,000 days. We piloted it across all 7 regions of Wales with extremely positive results, and we celebrated it during Infant Mental Health Awareness Week on June the 10th. Professor Sam Was provided our keynote speech, a neuroscientist from the University of East London, who's really pioneered research into how babies' brains develop. And this is where the arts come in, as you will see from just the title of his talk. There the dance is. And he started with a T.S. Eliot poem, by way of explaining that it's that moment of connection with another person that is the key ingredient in shaping a baby's brain. They're born with no template or understanding of how to make sense of the massive stimulus that greets them when they enter the world, and it's interpersonal relationships and moments of connection that drive that first emergence of meaning and lay pathways for future understanding. In bear training, we use this rather wonderful quote from Alison Gopnik about what it's like to be a baby. It's like being in love in Paris for the first time after you've had 3 double espressos. And how they learn is more akin to a lantern than a spotlight, taking in pattern and rhythm and routine to create meaning and understanding. How we learn first language compared with second language is a really good example of this. This is why rhythms and routines, big and small, are so critical to supporting babies' brain development, and why Sam Was's work is so aligned with the bear training. And of course, it's something that the arts are exceptionally brilliant at. In the training, we talk about stories, and here is Sam explaining it far better than I can about why this is so important.
I'm Frank Cottrell-Boyce, Waterstones Children's Laureate, and I'm here today with Book Trust to visit the University of East London Baby Dev Lab, where we are going to speak to Professor Sam Wass about what happens inside a baby's brain when you read it a story.
Our brains and bodies naturally work through rhythms, so rhythms create stability, rhythms create meaning. And we know that as adults our rhythms are fairly stable. And when we're reading to kids, we're creating strong and stable rhythms at lots of different timescales. Our children kind of latch onto these rhythms, and it helps their own rhythms, which are naturally messier, to become more stable, to become more predictable, to become more kind of adult-like. And we know that that helps them to be calm, and we know that that also helps their brains to learn to kind of make sense of these rhythms and to understand language.
So the scan is underway, and now we're looking at this. Is this like a visualization of the brain activity?
Yeah, so this is very specifically looking at how Ashley's and Mia's brain is becoming synchronized at this moment, where you can hear Ashley's actually reading to Mia at the moment, and you can see the two brains are superimposed on top of each other, which we've just done as a rough visualization of the fact that their brain rhythms are in synchrony.
Wow.
So what's happening is Ashley's speech is creating strong rhythms in her brain, and Mia's brain is tracking on, is latching onto these rhythms that Ashley's creating, and it's helping their brains to get into the same state at the same time.
So it's like a song and she's joining in.
It's a song and she's joining in, yeah, and they're both singing to the same beat, and it's all been driven by this shared language input.
It's been really great seeing the work today, because it's been really important for us at Book Trust to be able to show the neuroscience behind the work that we're doing and why early years reading really matters.
Yeah, so it's been really great being part of the Reading Rights campaign, really special for me, because so much kind of neuroscience is quite kind of abstruse and technical, and to do something that actually feels like you're making a difference, it's been really, really fantastic for me.
I've always known that reading with a child was an enriching experience and a bonding experience and something great. But here at Sam, it's like, it's more than that, it's something fundamental. It's something that's happening at a biological level, and it's part of how we become a person. Something happens in that moment between a child and someone who loves that child that is key to becoming a human. So we really need to defend that space.
The change we want to see out of the...
There we go. And we also talk about music. I'm not going to play this video, but you may be able to tell that this baby is totally enthralled by his grandmother's singing. And we talk about play and movement and dance. Sam talks a lot about dance and the connection that it brings, and how it's so much more than just copying steps. Indeed, it's the moment of connection or attunement that is so critical for a baby's brain development, and why, out of many concepts we could have focused on in the bear training, we chose this for the bear awareness raising. Of course, we go on in bear to use every opportunity, and we take participants on a bear hunt using video clips and observation tools to spot attuned relationships in action. And what does attunement look like? Well, it's that everyday magic when we feel understood, valued, and like we belong. It's important for all of us, but it's critical for babies. And it's not just joy. It's about our distress and our discomfort being understood, giving words to our feelings, and that sense of having someone alongside us in the world. Again, this is something the arts do brilliantly. It's the moment when you well up during a play, or feel heard in a book, or feel seen in a TV show. For babies, it's the everyday micro moments from those who are closest to them, the still point of the turning world. And during the training, we tried to provide that as far as we could for our participants, placing as much emphasis on the experience as the contents. Blankets, fans, which would be very useful today, fidget toys, movement breaks, snacks and refreshments, all help to make everyone feel valued and able to tune into their physical self as well as their emotional self, and like they belonged as part of something bigger. We also incorporated baby voice into our training as much as possible, creating a lullaby to focus on how we could explain the core concepts to a baby and involve them in it. We're very grateful to some local Welsh composers and producers who helped us with this. I'm not going to play it, but it's available on our website in both English and Welsh, and in male and female voice. Ooh. There we are. It feels really important to celebrate that it's not just psychologists and psychotherapists and early years practitioners who are passionate about why the first 1,000 days really matter. We've been joined by neuroscientists, economists and artists in this passion, and many more. I was at Hay Festival recently and Frank Cottrell-Boyce said, "We need to dispel the myth that early years is the babysitting stage before the real work begins." He described it as the cake, and everything else is the icing and adornment. And not only can the arts help to achieve the best cake possible, they were doing it long before services began. Beat, rhythm, structure, routine, song, dance, storytelling are superpowers that we need all our babies to have. I'm just going to finish up with the Early Years Framework for Action's definition of the best start in life. I've underlined the really important bits for today. It's about relationships and experiences, and everyone playing their part. And the arts are fundamental to this, not just a fun extra. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much, Liz. You gave a really clear and concise explanation of why the early years are so important for babies and for their caregivers, and actually how the arts and creativity can play a really fundamental role in that. So thank you. We'll now go on to hear some perspectives on a group singing programme by Breathe Arts. So Yvonne, welcome, and over to you.
Hi everybody, and thank you so much for having us today. This is just a short introduction to our Breathe Melodies for Mums programme. We're going to show a film. It's a Singing for Postnatal Depression programme that's underpinned by 8 years of scientific research, 2 randomised control trials, and has been running in our local communities since 2017. And we're now starting to scale this both nationally and internationally. So hopefully this video will really bring it to life for you. And then we're going to talk about the research and some of the positives and challenges with scaling this intervention.
Thanks, Yvonne. Can I just request that the presentation is put into full screen mode, please?
Breathe Melodies for Mums is an evidence-based group singing intervention that works with mothers with symptoms of postnatal depression. In just 10 weeks, we can show that our bespoke singing intervention can reduce symptoms of postnatal depression and improve mother-infant bonding.
For me, the way that anxiety manifests is that I just have like reoccurring thoughts. What if this goes bad? What if this goes bad? And while you're singing, those thoughts just stop.
Coming stressed and leaving as if we'd almost sung our stresses out.
There are many barriers to mothers accessing traditional healthcare services when they're struggling with postnatal depression. We really pride ourselves on creating an inclusive and safe environment. We sing songs in multiple languages and from different cultures and countries, which creates a sense of connection and community.
It celebrates community, and sometimes in motherhood we only think that community is for our children, but community is for the mother, because if the mother is whole, she can give a whole and a great experience for her child.
It's not your usual mum and baby group. It's strictly a nursery rhyme free zone. We don't talk about postnatal depression at all in the sessions, but the programme has been intricately designed to meet the mother's very specific needs.
Just a place to learn some techniques of just relaxing body and mind, and also just taking time with the baby, but knowing it's for you. I think that's quite nice.
I'm a single parent, and sometimes it can get quite overwhelming and stressful. It's helped me be more confident.
From Breathe Melodies for Mums, the families have felt confident to come in and access further sessions within the children and family centres up until their child's reaching nursery age, which has been quite phenomenal.
We follow approximately 200 women throughout 10 weeks of intervention, and then we saw them again 6 months after the end of treatment. What we found is an improvement in the depressive symptoms that was sustained 6 months after the end. The fact that the improvement was still sustained is really new and of course very clinically important. We measured cortisol in the saliva. Cortisol is a main hormone that expresses how stressful people feel. What we've noticed is that women had a drop in cortisol. We were also able to measure the cortisol levels in the babies. And what we found, which is really interesting, is that the level of cortisol in the mothers and in the babies tend to synchronize as the time goes. It's the biological manifestation of the improved mother-infant interaction.
There's plenty of research to show that interaction in the perinatal period sets the foundation for the infant's development throughout the rest of life. As our results do show that the mum is more in tune with the baby, Melodies for Mums can have downstream positive impacts on the baby's development through the rest of their life.
Melodies for Mums is really cost effective. The mothers gain the equivalent of 15 days in full health for a cost that is lower or comparable to a lot of other community-based intervention for postnatal depression. So truly a great investment.
We want this programme to benefit as many mothers, fathers, parents and wider communities as possible. So we can deliver programmes online, and our research has shown that the programme can be just as effective delivering it as an online intervention. We're now piloting this work with dads and fathers. We're now also partnering with the World Health Organization, training teams to deliver this all over Europe. So we hope that through having designed and delivered this intervention for now over 7 years, it can be a new way of delivering postnatal depression services across our community.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad we got the video working. I'm going to move us on to our next session and we'll hear a little bit more from Yvonne and her colleagues on the Breathe programme in that as well. If that's okay, Yvonne. Please do keep submitting questions in the chat. As I say, as we go throughout the session, we'll be monitoring that. And if we go to the Slido screen next, you can either return to Slido through the QR code, or you may still be there, and please respond to the next question, set of question 2. So in the next slot, we've got 4 speakers. So say we'll hear from Yvonne again and her colleague Riddhi Laidwala, I'm so sorry, more about the Breathe Arts Foundation, Breathe Arts programme. We'll then have a short video introduced by Becca from Inside Out Cymru, which is a collaborative project with Flying Start and a Newid Health Board. We'll then come to Tiki Lowe from Making Sense Community Interest Group, and then on to Kate Easton and Diane Lewis from yw'r Public Health and the Perinatal and Infant Mental Health team. So first is to hear a little more around Breathe Melodies. If we can go to a full screen for the slides then, please. Thank you. Over to you again, Yvonne.
I'm now going to introduce our colleague Riddhi, who's going to talk about some of the research behind this programme.
Thank you so much. It's really lovely to be here today. I'm Riddhi. I'm a clinical trial manager in the section of perinatal psychiatry at King's College London, and I work with Professor Carmine Pariante, who you heard from earlier. In the next few minutes, I'm just going to talk you through the research behind Melodies for Mums and just share some results that we have had over the past few years. Can we have the next slide, please? So our study builds on the seminal work of Daisy Fancourt and Rosie Perkins, who investigated whether group singing could reduce symptoms of postnatal depression. In this trial, 134 mums with symptoms of postnatal depression were randomized to either 10 weeks of group singing, so Melodies for Mums, group play, or usual care. And results from this study really showed a trend towards faster symptom improvement in the singing group. And this effect, which is what's really important, became statistically significant among mums with moderate to severe postnatal depression. And it's these findings that really provided the rationale for our larger trial, examining both clinical effectiveness and underlying mechanisms. So I just wanted to start off this talk by acknowledging their incredible contribution to the field. Next slide, please. We conducted a randomized control trial recruiting 199 mothers and their babies, with 133 in the singing and 66 to the control group. We collected data at different time points, so baseline, week 6 and week 10, which was during the intervention. And we also had data approximately 2.5 months and 6 months post-intervention to assess longer-term outcomes. Next slide, please. Here's our first and probably the most important finding from the clinical effectiveness arm. The figure shows changes in depressive symptoms over time, with the singing group in the black line and the control group by the gray dotted line. So from baseline to week 10, both groups experience reduction in depressive symptoms. However, after week 10, we see this trajectory diverging further. While the control group showed modest additional improvement, it's the singing group that continued to experience reduction in depressive symptoms at both the 20 and week 36 follow-ups, which is approximately 2.5 and 6 months after the intervention. As a result, we're seeing that the gap between the groups widened over time, with the mums in the singing group showing substantially greater overall improvement than those in the control group. And the key message from this figure is not simply that symptoms decreased in both groups, but that it's mums who went through the Melodies for Mums program improved more, and those benefits continued to accumulate even after the 10-week sessions had finished. Next slide, please. We also examined biological outcomes focusing on salivary cortisol, which is a key biomarker of stress. Panels A and B show the cortisol concentrations before and after each session. So at week 1, we can see that cortisol levels decreased across both the singing and the control group, suggesting that participation in these activities was associated with short-term stress reductions. However, now if we turn our attention to panel B, the black bars, or the fuller bars representing the singing group, demonstrate a significant stress reduction effect, whereas the striped bars on the right in panel B, representing the control group, do not have that. And this really suggests that repeated participation in Melodies for Mums may not only reduce depression, but strengthen our physiological stress regulation over time. Next slide, please. We also explored whether the intervention influenced mother-infant communication, which is widely implicated in postnatal depression. As shown in the figure here, the singing group, represented by the black line, improved significantly across multiple domains that we assessed. The main ones that I'm presenting here are mentalization and infant-focused speech. And really, in practical terms, it's the mums in the singing group who were making almost twice as many comments that reflected an understanding of what their baby might be thinking or feeling. They were talking significantly more about their babies in these interactions. And these findings really suggest that the benefits of singing and Melodies for Mums extend beyond maternal mental health, stress regulation, and they support more positive and engaged mother-infant communications in the first 1,000 days of life. Next slide, please. Next, we assessed whether the intervention represents a good value for money from a healthcare perspective. Like we heard from Professor Pariante, we saw that Melodies for Mums had a gain of equivalent to approximately 15 additional days in full health, and this was assessed using the QALY measure, which is quite commonly used in health economics. And the estimated cost per gain was between 11,000 and 21,000. And to put that into context, the guidelines typically consider interventions between 20 to 30,000 pounds to represent a good value for money. And our estimates, as you can see here, fall largely within and mostly below, suggesting that Melodies for Mums is a cost-effective use of healthcare resources while also improving long-term maternal well-being. Next slide, please. Alongside the quantitative analysis, we collected extensive qualitative data to understand mums' experiences. And there were several key ingredients that emerged as important, like the frequency of sessions, the group size, the opportunity to share experiences with mums going through the same thing. And of course, the incredible work of all of the Breathe colleagues, the musical leads, the session facilitators. And together, all of these findings really help us understand not whether the intervention works, but how and why it works. Next slide, please. Finally, our next slide provides the publications arising from the project so far. I've whizzed through the slides today and I've whizzed through a lot of results, but I will give you the opportunity to screenshot these and explore the findings in more detail afterwards. Next slide, please. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Riddhi. Sorry, Yvonne, any closing comments?
Yes, thank you. So as you've seen now, that's the amazing research we've got behind the programme, and you've had a chance to get a sense of the feeling and experience of the programme through the video. So now we're in a very exciting position with Breathe Melodies for Mums, where we're looking at how could this become a new clinical care pathway for women all over the UK and internationally. We know it works. We now know not just that it works, but also how it works. So we're now at the point where we're looking at scaling this. And I just wanted to break down for the audience today some of the reasons why this works at scale and some of the challenges we're still facing to bring this to scale as an interesting discussion point for how the healthcare system can adopt creative health interventions into the mainstream. So there's a really brilliant model behind Breathe Melodies for Mums, which works on a global level. We tap into many things that we know work on a human level. So music is something that works across the ages and across cultures. We've got key ingredients that bring down things such as connection and empowerment and infant bonding. So we know that this can work. And we have a training programme now that means this has been delivered into 7 countries across Europe and Asia. And we have another 7 countries waiting, including Canada, Hawaii and America, to show that actually this can transcend cultural barriers. What we think is really exciting when delivering at scale, and what we've learned through the work we've done so far, is there are key ingredients that we know our partner organisations need to follow, which Riddhi mentioned now, that help the programme to work in a whole range of different cultural contexts and languages. But we've also learned that the programme needs to be adapted and flexed to meet those different cultural settings. So if, for example, we were to be delivering the programme in Wales with amazing partner organisations that we know already exist within your area, it would be really working with them to think, how does this fit within your specific either rural region or coastal region? How does this work across different languages? And how does it really meet the individual needs of your community? Now, we know there are probably 4 key barriers to this really working at scale, which I'm sure many of the other organisations here will have experienced. 1, unfortunately, we still have a slight problem with mindset. Many of our healthcare commissioners might see this simply as a singing intervention and therefore not recognise that this is actually a clinical programme that can work either instead of or alongside traditional healthcare pathways. We know it can reduce postnatal depression symptoms and it's cost effective. So having that evidence does really help us to convince commissioners. But on a top line, some people will still dismiss this work as just a singing intervention. Secondly, while it is a cost-effective intervention, and Riddhi's shown that through the QALY years and the comparison to NICE costs, what we also know is it is more expensive than a traditional mum and baby group. Now, the reason for that is we have safeguarding experts in the room, the women undertake clinical assessments and screening, and there's a lot of wraparound care, because essentially this is a clinical service. It's not simply a mum and baby group. So if you compare us to a traditional healthcare service, we're cost effective. If you compare us to a local community group, we're more expensive. So that puts us in a slightly difficult position when we're trying to work at scale. Thirdly, there's a little bit of reputational risk that we're seeing at the moment. We love to publish research that can help the whole sector to grow, but sometimes that research can be put into other settings, whereas this research shows that this specific model with the safeguarding element, with all these other clinical assessments, really works for women. When it is just kind of put on other singing groups, sometimes that doesn't have the same impact, obviously, on postnatal depression, and therefore there's a risk of it being kind of diluted. And the 4th major barrier to scaling is the fact that priorities can change within our government, within our National Health Service. And we've seen this at Breathe through other programmes we've run, where there was a programme we were running with children who'd had a brain injury. It used to be almost 100% funded by our healthcare service because we have, again, clinical scientific research to prove that it works. Over time, that particular patient group has been deprioritised, and now there's almost no funding within that area of healthcare for that patient group. We're in a great time at the moment where people are recognising maternal mental health and paternal mental health. And actually, that's where the opportunity lies for us to build on that and scale. But there's risk longer term of how do you continue this to be sustained funding in a society where we don't always have control over who sets those priorities. So we now are scaling this into other groups, not just mums. We're also working with fathers, but I know we're going to hear about a great fathers group in Wales next. We're also about to start a clinical research study looking at this work with mothers-to-be, so in pregnancy, really playing into that prevention agenda to say, actually, if we start this work in pregnancy, can it prevent postnatal depression ever even happening in the first place, which Riddy and I and the team at King's are working on. And we're also looking at the LGBTQ+ community, because we know that families now are very different and we don't need to just work with mothers and fathers as kind of standalone groups. So just to end with a call to action, this programme is running in across London, as I said, in many places internationally. We would absolutely love to benefit mothers in Wales. We would like to do that in partnership with people, with and alongside existing services, not instead of or replacing anything that happens already, because we know there's amazing work already there. So if you are interested in bringing this to benefit your community, please get in touch with us, and we'd love to have bespoke discussions with anybody looking to benefit their local groups.
Thank you so much, Yvonne and Riddy. Really helpful to hear the evidence and the passion that you have behind this project, clearly showing it's an effective and a cost-effective healthcare intervention that really helps that attunement between mum and baby, which Liz was talking about earlier. So yes, we'll now hear from Becca May Collins from Inside Out Cymru to talk about an approach using music to support dads.
Thanks, Emily. Hi, everyone. My name is Becca. I'm the project lead for Nurturing Dads, funded by the Bedair Foundation at Inside Out Cymru, in partnership with Flaen Start Blaneg Went. Can we go to the next slide, please? And one more. Thank you. So thank you, Yvonne and Riddy. It was really good to hear about that project. I'm really excited to hear about the Melodies for Dads project, and also to hear about the learnings you have around different cultural contexts, and also for atypical families. That's something we come across a lot in our work with Flaen Start, is the structure of families and the resources for atypical families out there. So just to give you some background, Inside Out Cymru is an arts and mental health charity that operate across Gwent. Like I said, we deliver this Music for Wellbeing in project in partnership with Flaen Start Blaneg Went, informed by an Iron Bevan Health Board's Art and Health Team's Arts and Minds project, which explored how creativity can support parents, families, and well-being during the early years. Like I've mentioned, this work takes place in Blaneg Went, a community with significant social and economic challenges, being the area with the highest proportion of most deprived small areas in Wales. The Blaneg Went Flaen Start team has a dedicated dad support work team, recognising the important role fathers play in family wellbeing and children's development, as well as the need for specialised support for fathers in the area. Dads in our group have struggled with work pressures, separation, significant mental health issues like depression or substance misuse, or at the very least, they have a lot of uncertainty about how to engage with services, and can also make it harder for fathers to get support they need in the community. All of us here know that giving children the best start in life depends on the people supporting them and the people caring for the children. While mothers are often targeted and well connected into services and peer support, dads can be harder to reach to begin with and are frequently under-supported, despite the vital role they play in their children's development. Many dads face barriers to taking part in these group activities, including anxiety, lack of confidence, practical challenges, especially in the Blaneg Went area, like transport, work patterns, cost of living, and the challenging realities of everyday family life. Similarly to what we saw in the Melodies for Mums video there, Nurturing Dads was created to offer a welcoming, creative space where fathers and their babies can connect with each other, babies and dads, babies and babies, dads and dads, dads and support workers, engage with their support workers in a context that feels familiar, safe, and comfortable for them, build confidence in themselves, and develop supporting relationships and peer support networks in the area. Since 2025, the project has delivered more than 70 creative sessions for fathers in Blaneg Went, engaging over 40 dads through music, conversation, and creative writing. The sessions are led by musician Alex Lupo, with support from poet Lee Manley, and the dad support workers themselves attend every session. Importantly, every single participating dad reported improved support networks, greater confidence in asking for help when they need it, with several dads directly and promptedly reporting being better able to cope with the parenting challenges at home. What began as a creative wellbeing project has grown into a community of dads who continue to support each other, giving each other lifts, helping each other out in bad spots. Some of them went on holiday together recently for the first time since their children have been born, who continue to support each other and their families beyond the sessions. We'll show you a short film now. You'll hear directly from two of the dads who are involved in conversation with Alex, the lead artist, about what the project has meant to them and why supporting dads is an important part of giving every child the best possible start in life. So we've got one more slide, please. And the next slide. And here's the film. Thank you.
One of the things that can always happen here, whatever we're doing, and we talked about it earlier on today. I mean, we've spent part of today having quite a focused bit of time learning to play a song, loads of us on guitar. There's been bits that have been more kind of playful, where people have been hopping on off the drums and stuff. Some weeks we're looking at music production, some weeks we're just listening to music, some weeks we're not doing any of that. We're talking about how our week has been, and but I think the thread through all of that is connection, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. It was awesome when we all did a song together. That was good.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be able to do that.
So I initially came because I was having a lot of trouble with my eldest, and it was just nice to get to know other fathers or dads or people that are in the same predicament as what I was in, or very similar to what I was in. Plus having that support of everybody as a group just made it easier, I suppose.
I hope it's all right for me to say, but what I've definitely noticed about you two in particular is I think it's fair to say like a friendship outside of the group is emerged, right? And you guys are doing stuff together outside of the group too. That feels like something really tangible that's come out of coming along. Right?
Yeah. Initially I was really apprehensive. Like Matt said, go there and you talk into like-minded, or you kind of all in the same boat, and there was no judgment, or it was a nice group of lads.
It doesn't feel like much to ask actually to take 2 hours out of your week where you're focusing on something that's for yourself. And I wonder if that's what's...
Oh yeah, like that's what I think that's a big part of it, not putting myself first. It'd be my children, and I'd always be afterthought, or not an afterthought, but coming here.
Totally, and I think that's so many people's experience. It's often the hardest.
Well, because I'm playing an instrument, and you've seen me practicing at home. Like we've got him instruments, and he wants to play with me, which is great. It's something we can do together. And where before it was more I get a lot of anger from him, or he wouldn't really want to do anything. But that was like a small step then, and now we're doing more and more now.
So having a chance to be together.
Yeah.
To nowhere leads to my
Thank you for watching that video. I just want to leave you with two things. So what you heard there was a song the dads wrote together and recorded with Alex singing. I just want to say a massive thank you to the team. The only reason this has worked as well as it has is because all of the team are committed, from Alex to Lee to all the dad support workers to the management team and the team leaders at Flaen Start too. I want to give you a couple of lines from a song the dads wrote as well. Don't mind me if I cry about it. So this is what some of our dads have said. It's the beat in the chest, it's the peace in the room, a light for the shadows, a break in the gloom. We step to the rhythm, we leave the weight at the door, because in this circle we carry it no more. Music and well-being, for us, it holds a bigger meaning, more than just a weekly meeting. It's the rhythm of our healing. Yeah, thanks very much, guys. And yeah, looking forward to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Becca. A really powerful point to end on then. I'll just say a quick ask for people, if you've got any questions for the speakers, please do pop those in the chat. But we'll go now to hear from another project. Tiki Lowe is CEO and founder of Making Sense Community Interest Group, talking about a project that is supporting wellbeing of babies, toddlers and caregivers in North Wales. Welcome, Tiki.
Hi, thank you. So yeah, I'm Tiki. I'm the artist and creative facilitator. And I'm also the founder of Making Sense, which is my work focuses on touch, interaction, play and sensory engagement. I'm going to be talking about our creative work with early years children, but first here's a bit of context about Making Sense. So Making Sense is a small charity working across North Wales to improve wellbeing, connection and enable participation in arts and culture. We support people with learning disabilities, families and young children in rural and higher deprivation areas, and older people resident in care homes, and people who care for and support them. We remove barriers to participation by delivering free creative activities in community settings, galleries and cultural venues, bringing high quality arts experiences into communities with limited cultural provision. Our three main programmes use accessible, sensory, artist-led activities to reduce isolation, build confidence, community connection and improved well-being. yw'r is our programme for early years children from birth to 5 years old, which began in 2018 when the then education officer at Ruthin Craft Centre, Sioned Phillips, invited me to run a series of workshops for young children and their parents and carers, as they were an underserved audience there at the time. So using the work of exhibiting artists and makers and their materials and processes as inspiration for our sessions, we developed sensory-rich environments, including carefully curated invitations to play with a wide selection of loose parts. They were free to join. There was no right or wrong way to play. The sessions were completely child-led, with parents and carers playing alongside their child. For very new babies, there were soft, safe spaces with sound, smell, and interesting sensory objects to feel and be immersed in. The sessions were well received and they were very popular, and we started to be asked to run sessions in other venues in North Wales, and then we came up with the name yw'r at that point, which means little hands. Sioned, who initiated the original sessions, by now had left Ruthin Craft Centre and became our project coordinator. 8 years on, we've been running sessions inspired by artwork and artists from galleries across North Wales. Our main funder has been Clockennog Forest Wind Farm Fund for our work in Conwy and Denbighshire over the last 3 years, taking our gallery-inspired sessions into family centres, to TAV and Cilch, which are Welsh medium parent and toddler groups, and preschool nurseries, which are run by Mudiad Weithrin, into village halls and schools in rurally isolated Welsh-speaking communities. We've also run our sessions at Conwy Culture Centre, Storiol in Bangor, Studio Made in Denbigh, RCA Conwy, Mostyn, Venue Cymru in Llandudno and T-Power Brexham. I've chosen David Nash's exhibition, Nature Wisdom, which was at Ruthin Craft Centre from September 2025 until January this year to use as a case study. Where possible, we start with a visit to the exhibition as an artist team before developing our workshops and designing a space for play and exploration. Things that we took from David Nash's exhibition were the natural materials, the scale of his sculptural works, the opportunities for building and construction, the reoccurring themes like the bundles of sticks, simple 3D shapes and circles. But we also wanted to share David Nash's way of working and his own playfulness as a maker, making drawings with his bare hands using burnt wood and soil, and his curiosity, his wooden boulder, for example. What happens if you leave a large wooden boulder at the top of a valley? Where will it be in 30 years? As artists, there's always a challenge to reinterpreting an artist's work for our early years audience. It means that there is always a new and different way of looking and then presenting fresh ideas for our small audience. It also stretches our brains. All of the artists we work with have experiences working with early years children, but we all bring different skills. But mostly our way of working has evolved from observing how children play in our sessions. We were very lucky to be able to use the gallery for some of the workshops for babies and their caregivers on Monday mornings when the gallery was closed to the public. Feeling calm, quiet, and being ground level, spending time amongst the large-scale artwork was a unique experience for the families who came along. We observed parents and caregivers begin to notice the things about the artwork, to connect with it and appreciate the work on a deeper level. We provided natural resources and wooden blocks, simple shapes, wooden resources for loose parts play, resources for exploring the environment through touch, taste and sound. And we provided charcoal. Inspired by Nash's bluebell circle, we made circles using leaves, flour and charcoal, and then invited our toddlers to explore them. Nash's boulder inspired the use of small and large balls, bringing opportunities for physical movement and learning about size, scale, cause and effect, like rolling a ball through paint, sand or down a tube. We have learnt that when we set up our spaces, not to have any set ideas or expectations about how children will interact with them, because they always do something that you hadn't thought of, and that's exactly what we want. We leave space for imaginative play and for learning about materials through unguided exploration. In our sessions, parents and carers play alongside their child, following their interests, and we gently remind them that we don't mind if a spoon from one setup is moved to another and repurposed, and we encourage them to wear old clothes too, so that they can get involved with paint. Parents and carers tell us that the sessions make them feel calm and relaxed enough to explore with their child, and also have told us that the unstructured nature of our sessions mean that they have time to talk to and form lasting bonds with other adults, which they value. Parents and carers tell us that our sessions have shown them how calm and focused their children are when they are exploring our resources, compared to how they are in playgroups or in other sessions that they attend. And for some, it's been a revelation. When parents realise how much more engaged and focused their children are when playing with a cardboard box or a teaspoon, compared to how they play with toys at home. They've changed how they view play and creativity, which has positively impacted how they play at home. To end, I wanted to share some insight from people who attend our sessions. If you have a read of this, Kate is a local childminder. She's a valued supporter of our work, and she's a qualified primary school teacher, an early years specialist. Most recently, Kate has become the first childminder in Wales to achieve the Play Wales quality mark called Gwreiddio'r Safon, and she sums up yw'r and its value for early years in this summary. If you want to read more about this, it's all on our website, and I've put a link in the chat and we can share that. It's on our website. And then there's a couple more quotes from some of our parents here. And then finally, thanks to all of the people that have funded us and supported us. And thanks very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Tiki. Wonderful. And that sounds like a really lovely initiative, thinking about that quality of arts engagement and how play can really support holistic wellbeing for children. Thank you. So we'll go now to Katie Eiston and Diane Lewis to talk about the Starting Well Collaborative. Thank you both. Hi, Katie. We've got you spotlighted. Over to you.
I'm just waiting for the presentation.
Of course.
But whilst that's being made available, I'd just like to introduce ourselves. I'm Kate Eiston. I'm joined by Diane Lewis, and we both work for Our Health Board. We're here this morning to introduce the Starting Well programme, which focuses on giving every child the best possible start in life by supporting families from pregnancy and early parenthood through community-based creative sessions that promote well-being, strengthen parent-infant relationships and reduce isolation. Next slide, please. So the project overview, we focus on perinatal mental health, supporting that emotional well-being from conception and up to the first year post-birth, with the aim to address and provide early support before mental health challenges escalate. The project's currently funded by the Welsh Government Prevention and Early Years Grant, which enables preventative and early intervention approach. This is sort of to test and scale, so it allows us the opportunity to test this project. It's delivered in partnership across public health, specialist perinatal mental health services and arts in health, bringing together clinical and non-clinical expertise. We've currently delivered 6 cohorts and engaged with over 30 families across West Wales within the last 18 months, and we're currently delivering our seventh cohort, which sort of demonstrates sustained engagement. The model is particularly important in rural regions like West Wales, where access and engagement can be barriers. The aim is not just to support, but to help parents reconnect with themselves and their babies, particularly during a vulnerable period. As reflected in the family quote, this approach feels different, is less clinical and more relational. Next slide, please. So the first 1,000 days, as we're all very aware, are critical in shaping brain development, attachment and long-term health outcomes. In Wales, around 1 in 8 women experience perinatal mental health challenges and difficulties, such as anxiety, depression or trauma-related conditions. These difficulties occur during that critical developmental window, the first 1,000 days, and evidence shows that mental health need is higher in more deprived communities, which is highly relevant locally. In West Wales, around 1 in 4 children live in poverty, increasing risk factors for both parent and infant well-being. Without the early support, perinatal mental health challenges can impact parent-infant attachment, child development and long-term family outcomes. So the work we're currently doing aligns strongly with Best Start in Life priorities and reducing inequalities, particularly in communities experiencing higher levels of need. The quote highlights that sometimes parents don't recognise the impact until they're given space to reflect and connect. Next slide, please. So the role of artists, so the creative arts are central to this model because they provide that non-clinical, less intimidating way to engage. Many parents find it difficult to talk, and arts help overcome this by providing a non-clinical, less stigmatizing route into support and opportunities for emotional expression without needing words. This is particularly important in perinatal mental health, where experiences can be complex and quite often difficult to articulate. The approach complements existing early years services by adding preventative emotional well-being layer and also naturally supports the parent-infant interaction through shared sensory activities, and the artists play a key role in creating a safe and non-judgmental environment which builds trust and engagement. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Kate. Firstly, I just wanted to mention and draw your attention to the images. You've probably already guessed that they're from the previous groups. So what we've delivered, as Kate mentioned, we've delivered 6 cohorts across West Wales, with the 7th currently running. And the sessions intentionally combine the creative arts engagement, perinatal mental health informed support, and parent-infant interaction activities. So we are delivering within community settings, helping reduce the barriers to accessing support early for our families. And this is important because perinatal mental health services nationally still show variation in access depending on where families live, reinforcing the value of local community-based provision. A key strength is the multi-agency facilitation, ensuring both emotional support and high-quality creative input. And we can see that feedback shows that consistency in a welcoming space means parents look forward to attending each week, which is key for engagement. And we can do the next slide, please. So in terms of growth, impact and learning, this programme has grown significantly. We're now working with 10 artists, increasing capacity and diversity of delivery, and we're seeing early positive outcomes, including improved confidence, reduced isolation, and improved parent-infant relationships. These are key protective factors known to mitigate the impact of perinatal mental health difficulties. Importantly, this model supports early identification and engagement before families reach crisis or require further specialist interventions. One of the biggest successes is that the arts act as a hook, bringing families in who might not otherwise engage. What we found is that the key learning includes the importance of safe, trusted environments, flexibility in delivery, and strong partnerships. The expansion reflects both growing demand and the value of this preventative approach. And next slide, please. So thinking about the opportunities that we have going forward, there is a strong opportunity to embed this approach within local perinatal mental health and early years pathways. And perinatal mental health is a growing priority area nationally, with increasing recognition of its long-term impact on population health. Given that around 1 in 8 women experience mental health challenges and the need is greater in areas of deprivation, there is a clear case for scaling preventative community-based models like this. By working in partnership, we're well placed to strengthen early identification and outreach, integrate creative approaches into family support pathways, and support a shift towards prevention rather than crisis response. So perinatal mental health is both a public health issue and an early years priority, and this project demonstrates how creative community-based approaches can engage families earlier and more effectively. The next step is to sustain and integrate this into mainstream provision rather than it remaining a short-term project. And we've just got one more slide then to share all of our contributors. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Another really powerful project example, and it's great to see these examples of the arts integrating with services. Thank you. So next we've got another Slido question for you all. So please do return to your Slido screens to just complete question 3 on there. We've had a couple of questions come into the chat, but I'm just going to suggest that we hold those till the end of the session and we'll come to them if we've got time. They both very much relate to the aims of the Cynefin initiative itself, which is really looking at how we strengthen, spread and scale arts for health and wellbeing in Wales. So we will be developing our responses to those questions that have come in, I suppose, through this process. But as I say, we'll come back to them if we can. But what I wanted to do now was we'll come back to our speakers for each of our 4 projects with an ask that you share a quick pitch for the future that you would like to see in terms of making the best start in life in reality in Wales. So first we'll come to Liz, followed by Tanya.
Hey, shall I just go?
Just go for it, Liz.
Okay, I'm going for it. Hello, I am baby Sian. Everything is overwhelming, but I'm learning with every smile, every cuddle, every moment. I wish I lived in a society where, as Frank Cottrell Boyce said, people understand that my early years are the cake and everything that comes later is icing. You are not babysitting me until the real work begins. This is the work. If you care about who I become, then the 3 R's that really matter are relationships, rhythm, and routine. Running through them all is attunement, the golden thread that tells me I'm seen, I matter, I am safe. I want to live in a society where everyone plays their part in making me feel welcome, where play, joy, and connection with me are recognised as not just fun, but fundamental to my development. Let's face it, you've already done this for dogs. It used to be rare to find somewhere that welcomed them. Now there are dog bowls outside shops and treats on the counter. Whole coffee chains have been designed around them, and dogs drag their owners in, tails wagging. The best part is even non-dog owners love it there too. Unless you have me with you, that is. You struggle to get through the door with my buggy and have to decide if you leave me at the table on my own or balance a tray in one hand and me in the other. How will we know if things are truly changing? When a whole aeroplane smiles as I come on board, hoping I sit beside them, not bracing themselves and hoping I don't. Of course, the world of aeroplanes and even coffee shops is out of reach for many babies like me, the ones most at risk, the ones this transformation matters most for. My vision is that the first 1,000 days are recognised as somewhere we choose to invest seriously and collectively, so that every baby can have the best start in life. Because as one teacher pointed out to Frank Cottrell Boyce, I can't have a bedtime story if I don't have a bed. My 1,000 days are ticking.
Thank you. That was really powerful to hear that in terms of the voice of the babies. Thank you for doing it in that way. Tanya, we're going to come to you next for your vision, please.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So our vision is simple. We want every child in Blaen y Gwent to have the best possible start in life. We know to achieve this, strong, supported and confident families are important, and we know that fathers play a vital role in their children's development, well-being and future aspirations. Too often, support for dads is limited, inconsistent or designed without their needs and experiences in mind. We want to see a future where fathers are recognised as equal partners in their children's early years and where services actively engage them from the very beginning and at antenatal stage. Through Flying Start and Nurturing Dads, we've seen what works. Where fathers are offered a welcoming, non-judgmental and creative space to connect with others, express themselves and problem solve, confidence and self-esteem increase, support networks and coping mechanisms strengthen and families become more connected to their communities. These are not incidental outcomes, these are the foundations of healthy family life. Our vision for this approach is to become the norm, not just the exception. We want to see sustained investment in community-based, relationship-led and creative forms of engagement that reach fathers in ways that traditional services cannot. We believe creativity is not an optional extra, but a powerful tool for building trust, belonging and supporting long-term personal well-being. Ultimately, we want a system that values connection as much as outcomes and that invests in the relationships, communities and creative approaches that help fathers, children and families thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Another really powerful one, pulling out the importance of connection and shared experience there. Beautiful, thanks. Next, Katie, come back to you for your future vision, please.
Thank you. So, best start in life within West Wales. If we invest in creativity to support parents' mental health from the very start, we don't just improve early years outcomes, we prevent inequality and build healthier rural communities for generations. Across West Wales, rurality shapes health. We have a strong connected communities, but also isolation, access barriers and hidden inequality. Perinatal mental health is therefore a key public health priority because a parent's well-being directly shapes a child's start in life. So the challenge is, how do we reach families earlier, more equitably, and in ways that genuinely engage them? Our vision is simple. Arts and creativity is not an add-on, they are core to perinatal and early years support. From pregnancy onwards, every family should be able to access creative, relationship-based support through midwifery, health visiting, Flying Start, and community hubs. This means artists working alongside perinatal mental health teams and frontline staff to create safe, non-clinical spaces that can support parental well-being, bonding and secure attachment, confidence in early parenting, and early communication and development. In rural areas, this approach is especially powerful. It reduces isolation, builds peer connection, engages families in inclusive, non-stigmatizing ways. From a public health perspective, this is about shifting investment upstream, supporting well-being early to prevent longer-term inequalities. So our headline is, arts and creativity should be treated as essential perinatal and early years health infrastructure in rural Wales, because when parents feel well, connected and confident, children thrive, and we can create healthier, more equal communities for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Really helpful to have that perspective around rurality and the importance of addressing isolation, but also stigma that can lead to people feeling lonely and isolated and not accessing support as well. Thank you. So last of our 4 pitches is to come from Tiki. So over to you and look forward to hearing it.
Thank you. I founded Making Sense because I believe that everyone should have access to arts and culture. Galleries should feel be welcoming, inclusive spaces where all families feel they belong. Arts and culture enrich our lives, inspire curiosity, and help us make sense of the world around us. Our vision is for every parent and child in Wales to have access to sensory-rich, child-led play through their local galleries and community spaces. We want all babies and young children to experience the benefits of sensory exploration, creativity, and loose parts play from the earliest years. Our vision is to continue taking yw'r on tour to rural communities, whilst extending our programme into other areas of deprivation, increasing access and opportunities for those who need it most. yw'r approach aligns closely with the curriculum for Wales and with the Welsh Government's Early Childhood Play, Learning and Care Framework for children aged 0 to 5. Through play, children develop confidence, creativity, communication skills, and a lifelong love of learning. We are passionate about sharing this approach with others by providing training for early years practitioners, demonstrating how loose parts, open-ended resources, and thoughtfully designed invitations to play can nurture children's curiosity, imagination, and exploration. We are already working in partnership with Mudiad Meithrin to deliver online training for early years practitioners, and we would like to expand these opportunities so that staff from a wide range of settings can experience the yw'r approach firsthand. Childhood has changed. Family life is busy, time is limited, and screens often become the easiest solution when there are countless demands on parents' attention. Children's days can become highly structured and filled with organised activities. Our hope is that more parents, childminders, teachers, and early years professionals will have the opportunity to experience the power of slowing down, creating inviting play environments, following children's lead, observing their interests, and playing alongside them. These simple but powerful experiences help children develop confidence, creativity, independence, and well-being, giving them the strongest possible foundation for life. Bringing together arts, culture, and play, we can create a Wales where every child has the best start in life.
Thank you so excuse me. Thank you so much, Tiki. That was another really powerful one, and I think your point around the need to address the variation in access to opportunities for communities in Wales to engage with arts and culture and play is really important, because we know that variation does exist. So thank you all for those pitches. They were really powerful, and we'll come to our a few of our Cynefin champions in a moment to share some of the reflections on what they've heard, including including those visions. First, I just wanted to encourage you to return to Slido again. So we do have another question there for you to respond to. So please have a look. Here we go, another QR code if you're not there, and that should be moving through the questions for you. Thank you all. I think we've heard so much information today and many of it really powerful. So I hope everybody's kind of enjoyed absorbing that, but particularly our Cynefin champions. So I'm delighted to first pass to Dr. Isabel Oliver, who is the Chief Medical Officer for Wales, to share her initial reactions to the evidence and lived experience that you've heard today. So if we can stop sharing the slides for a moment, please, and give Isabel the spotlight.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask Philip to help me because I unfortunately missed a lot of that due to a clash with our executive directors team meeting. But just very briefly to say that obviously it was really good to hear some of the, what I managed to hear and some of the evidence. You might expect me as an epidemiologist to have lots of questions, but it's really good to see some, good evaluations being undertaken. So thank you very much for that. Philip, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks very much. I mean, it's a real privilege to be here today. Thank you so much. There's a huge amount to sort of reflect upon, and I fear I will not do it justice. But I thought something that Tiki said was really poignant to me, that children always do something unexpected, right? And for me, that is about art, right? That's what art is. Picasso said that every child is an artist. The problem is how we remain an artist as we grow up. And certainly as a consultant in public health, we're often forced along thinking scientifically, thinking with that one part of our brain to make sense of the whole world. And we know instinctively that that isn't sufficient. There was a really good question raised. How do we meaningfully work alongside or instead of standard intervention? So how do we integrate this? How do I, as a director of public health, make a pitch to my finance director that this is an important way forward, that this is something that we need to invest in? It's clear from the evidence. I mean, we can look at the Heckman curve was referenced, but in terms of cognitive and learning development, social and emotional development, communication and language, the arts and culture have such a strong part to play in who we are as human beings. And what we've seen from here is that cultural activities benefit all participants. It's fantastic to see and hear the range of empirical evidence that's being produced, but also the lived experience of adult participants, and as we move on in terms of the ages of children as well. Kate Easton, apologies if I mangled your name, said something along the lines of, and apologies if I've misquoted you, that cultural activities and art allow communication where words are not available or sufficient. And I absolutely agree. And that's not only for young children who may lack the vocabulary, but also parents and others who may be affected by mental health and/or trauma. So I'm really excited to be part of this, and thank you to everybody who's been presenting today. Cheers.
Thank you both. A wonderful double act, and we're delighted to have you joining us as champions to hear not just from today's speakers, but as we go through the process and work towards shaping those practical policy recommendations off the end of it. Thank you. I will come next to somebody who's probably already sold on the value of arts for our health and wellbeing, which is David Reiths, who is the Chief Exec of Arts Council for Wales. Welcome, David.
Oh, diolch yn fawr iawn, and thank you for the invitation to be here this morning and to witness and to see so many inspirational projects in this field. I mean, as an Arts Council, we're very proud of our work in this field for the last 10 years now, and it's a priority for us as an organisation. There was a couple of things that struck me, well, many things that struck me. A few things that came to mind as I was listening to the excellent presentation is, it was so wonderful to see so much sort of evidence-based evaluation. One of the things that I come across quite often in my role when I speak to government or ministers is where's the evidence? How do we evidence this? And this was one of the reasons why we commissioned our Arts and Health report. I think it's about 12 months ago now with Bangor University, to pull together that evaluation on the evidence to strengthen the arguments. I can't remember who said it now, but somebody mentioned that there's a mindset issue. This idea that that creativity and work with art can work instead of clinical interventions or alongside, and I think that's one of the significant hurdles that we need to sort of try and convince those within government, within health boards, across not only Wales but the whole of the UK. And that struck me about the importance of evaluation. So thank you very much. It's been really inspirational, and I look forward to coming more of these sessions throughout the year to come. So diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch, David. So next we will come to yw'r, who is an academic and a writer who specialises in identity and representation. So I'm really interested, yw'r, in your reflections on what you've heard today. Oh, I can't hear you at the moment. Just check your sound. You look like you're... Oh, yes, thank you.
Yes, hiya. Thank you so much for having me. It's yw'r, by the way, just thought I'd correct you. Yeah, it's been really inspiring listening to everyone. Really honoured to be in the room. My background is as an artist and as a facilitator, so I often work with like marginalised communities using art intervention strategies for well-being. So being able to see evidence-based responses and clinical studies has been really inspiring. One of the things that we often see within the arts is, well, like it's kind of, art's quite dismissed as this thing that you do for fun, not just for creativity, and the value is increasingly, due to political pressures and everything, is being kind of undermined. And so being in a space like this to see their value is really inspiring. What really stood out to me was Tiki's Making Sense yw'r project, an artist play, and using like artists' work, visual work, and making it accessible to people of all ages and all backgrounds. Often, you know, I really like the approach of like a gallery space. It's not just something to be observed and not just something to be analysed critically from a distance, but actually something to be immersed within, and something that can be reinterpreted. And I thought that, you know, it really challenged the value of art in terms of like some people would just look at it and think this is just a building block of rocks and shapes, but actually those building blocks kind of became a metaphor for early year building blocks that we're giving to children and their parents. I really enjoyed listening to Katie saying how creative arts can be a non-clinical way to express emotions. A lot of the work that people seem are doing here is like finding new ways in for people to express their emotions. So yeah, thank you, diolch, and I'm really looking forward to like hearing across the other Cynefin events as they come along.
Absolutely. Thank you, yw'r. Really helpful contribution. As you say, this is just the start of a journey through which we build our knowledge and understanding of opportunities and barriers to scaling up. Thank you. So we've got a mixture. We've got kind of health professionals and artists, or those from the arts sector, giving their reflections today. So I'll come back to another from the health sector, who is Dr. Catherine Thomas, a GP and a public health consultant, working with Deep End Cymru, a network of GP practices working with less affluent communities. Over to you, Catherine.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. And I've got pages of notes here. I've had such an interesting time listening to everybody, really inspiring. And Isabel mentioned about evidence. I think the evidence, you're all contributing to the evidence, and that makes it stronger for us, you know, for those in the health sector to kind of join in these partnerships and actually see the value for the outcomes that we're looking for. Our GPs often talk about kind of intergenerational poverty and deprivation and the absolute value of investing in those first 1,000 days. We see it exactly like you all do, but in our world, it often gets completely lost in that conversation about access and targets, and digital is going to solve everything. So everybody's focused on waiting lists, and that's mostly older people, and we can lose children and families in that, and we are losing children and families in that. So it's lovely to hear all this. And the other thing that came through strongly from all four of you making pitches is about equity, and that reaching out to those families who would most likely benefit, and doing it in a way that's in a co-productive way. Often the health service just does things to people, and we've not been very successful in that way. But all your approaches, I was really struck by that kind of do with, and the way that you can use creativity as using completely different ways of engaging people, and building those early years relationships that we all know is absolutely vital. You know, the attunement that you were all talking about, that really struck me. So I'm delighted to be part of this, and I'm hoping that we can build the case and build the evidence, and I can take it back to my colleagues in general practices in more deprived areas, and that we can work in partnership. We're mostly across South Wales, but we're across the whole country. So I'd love to kind of forge some local partnerships if we can. So yes, brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Catherine. It's great to hear how much inspiration just one session has given you. So I can't wait to see how you all feel as we go further through the process. I'm just going to share a few reflections myself before we go to pick up on some of the questions that have come in on the chat. And I think kind of building on what you've all said, really, that importance of evidence and really taking that cross-disciplinary approach, not just in building the evidence, but also in delivery of these projects. And I think, as Catherine said, you know, perhaps comes more naturally to arts practitioners to really do that co-production well, as opposed to perhaps a more paternalistic approach that we often see in healthcare services. And I think I was really struck as well by all of the projects really sharing the importance of shared experiences and building social networks with people who are going through similar things to you, and actually and during what is such a huge life transition for the whole family. So dads matter too, partners matter. It's not always just about the mums. We often hold my hand up, say, you know, as a mum, where's my time for myself gone? And that importance of kind of thinking about who you are, or who you were before you came a mum, and making space for that. But that is obviously important for all partners in the relationship. So yeah, lots coming out. Like others, I've got lots of notes, but I will come to Amy to just share one or two questions that have come up in the chat, and we'll invite our contributors and champions to respond to those. Amy.
Thank you. So yeah, there's a couple of main themes in the questions and comments that have been come in. So maybe we can start with one that's about the evidence, which is where we left some of that discussion. So some reflections in the chat about how we have quite a wealth of evidence, and some really good quality evidence, referencing work of Daisy Fancourt and others that have been talked about today. But some questions emerging about what do we think are the barriers to it being known and understood, and I guess you know, how do we kind of begin to overcome them? So that's kind of started from Laura from Audience Agency, but there's similar comments in the chat. Alice has just shared something about that risk of asking artists and creative to do even more for their funding in terms of evidence and impact. So that balance of what we know and how best to use that.
Thank you, Amy. So in terms of barriers on evidence really being seen, heard, valued, I'm going to come to our health champions, I think, to get that kind of perspective from you, given our project is all about trying to infiltrate the health sector. So Catherine, Daniel, Isabel, anything that you would like to share in response to that point? Catherine's come off mute first, so we'll go to you.
I mean, working in public health, and I'm sure my colleagues would agree, we put the case for prevention and early intervention over and over and over again, and it's really difficult. driver of healthcare costs is technology and pharmacy and drugs, and that's always gets on the agenda. It's really hard to make the case for prevention. I think the opportunities for this are quite strong because you're telling a really strong story, and I think even the policymakers and decision makers react to a strong narrative and a story and something that they can feel in their hearts. So it's kind of, if you're trying to make a hearts and minds case, you've got to win the hearts over first. And I think the way that you're all doing it, because you're creatives, you're much more able to do that than me as a public health consultant trying to make the case in a very dry scientific way. So I think you would be great allies for those of us inside who are trying to make the case for prevention and early intervention. And you can't get more early and more preventive than doing it in the first 1,000 days. So I think we need you to get inside the system and get you at the table, and then the data and the evidence has to be very strong, but you get the door open through the stories that you can tell. So I think that's, if we can work together on that, that would be great.
Thanks, Catherine. That's really helpful. Both sides, the data and the stories. Isabel, please come in.
Thanks. So we first of all, we need to recognize the context in which we are working. And, you know, it is a context of constrained resources and difficult decisions. Of course, data and evidence are key, but they are on their own not sufficient because, you know, there are lots of things that have benefit and could potentially be of value. So there are other things that need to be considered, including, you know, when we have to make choices about where we invest funding, well, what gives us the greatest amount of health for the resources that we have. So that's the value argument, and what is well aligned with wider strategic objectives. So a reflection that I had, but I hadn't mentioned earlier because, you know, I've missed some of it, so it may not be entirely relevant, but is the fact that one of the problems that we have is we often look at these interventions as isolated projects. And we're always focused on thinking about how we get funding for a little project here, a project over there, rather than thinking about what does this tell us about how we need to develop to provide services going forwards. In Wales, we've got a unique opportunity with the Community by Design program. So the question would be not about how do we scale up or fund individual programs, but how do we build you know, arts and health into the delivery of integrated services in the community, recognizing that that's already you know, it's been agreed that that has a prevention focus as a priority in it. Thanks.
Thank you. Really helpful to bring in that need for a really strategic approach to this, and if we want to see systemic change. Philip.
Thanks. I think I was the Daniel you mentioned, but
oh yes, sorry.
It's okay, it happens a lot. I mean, just to follow on from Isabel's comments, that I mean, I think Isabel's absolutely right. How do we make this something that is what we do every day, right? And as has been said, the evidence is absolutely there, and we can present the evidence. But we've also got the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act that talks about a Wales of thriving culture, right? And with the new government that's in place, I think that's all the more prescient, really. And so yes, I'm looking to this programme and the work that you and your team will be producing, Emily, in terms of how we can use that and take it forward with decision makers around board tables, etc. But I also think that it's not just a top-down approach either. It has to be bottom-up. I know that youth services have been slashed, but how do we actually reprise or regain or develop that engagement with arts and culture at all levels within society and across the whole life course, which is what this work is aiming to do. So I'm looking forward to the outputs. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Given part of that question was about thinking about the ask on artists to collect the data and help us in building that evidence base, I wondered if I could come to a couple of our contributors from earlier today, Becca, Tiki or Yvonne, whether you have anything to add to that from an artist perspective. Or indeed, Jura, you might wish to comment. Yvonne, thank you.
Just to say, I think that the evidence base that exists can be used by artists, and instead of being seen as an additional pressure on artists to collect this with kind of more projects and new interventions, I think it's looking at what is already out there. So looking at the work of Daisy Fancourt, looking at the organisations that specialise in this, because research is costly, it's long term, you know, it's very, very cumbersome. And it doesn't need everybody to do it. I think that's the really important thing. It needs a few people to move this forward for our sector, to get arts and health on the agenda, to get the scientific evidence behind our work, and then other people to be able to use that to share and celebrate what they are also doing. So I hope it would actually do the opposite. I hope it would take pressure off individual artists. And the other option is to think about if artists are really interested and fascinated personally in research, looking at what are the organisations that are already doing this and how can they partner with them to get that kind of evidence behind their own work. So so our vision at Breathe is to take that pressure completely off artists and to put it on academics who love doing that work, so the artists can be purely artists and focus on their own incredible creativity.
Thank you. That's really helpful and just challenges us to think about, are we being proportionate in the information that we ask to get back from projects when they are commissioned? Jura.
Completely echo what Yvonne said there, but as someone, I cross-discipline across academics and artists, so hopefully I can speak on both sides. I do agree sometimes, there is pressure on artists to do more for less in terms of funding, and I think the danger comes when we are asking artists to deviate the projects or what they're proposing, and to try and force in being able to show impact for a project that may not necessarily fit what we're looking for. So it's kind of this sweeping approach to asking every single project to show how it has an impact on community, which actually can become a very disingenuous way of practicing, because you fall into the danger of artists doing the work for the sake of getting the funding, rather than, as everyone said, someone who is genuinely interested in doing the work for that reason. I also wanted to address this idea of evidence and barriers to accessing evidence, and evidence being understood by a wide variety of people. I wanted to highlight how I loved hearing earlier about the Breathe Arts Health research, how the Mums and Babies singing group reduced cortisol levels, and you could measure that through saliva samples, I was just like, my brain was just so excited about it. But I think when it comes to evidence, there's also this idea of a hierarchy of how we measure evidence. So obviously we need clinical evidence and we need physical evidence, but also evidence can be kind of videos that we've just seen. Evidence can be testimonials. Evidence can be asking people to identify colours, participants to identify colours, and so if they change like the colour that they identified with at the start of the session versus the end of a session, that in itself can be evidence. So thinking about evidence as kind of more creative ways of kind of giving impact, and rather than just numbers and figures. And I think that's what makes evidence accessible to a wider range of people.
Thank you. That really resonated with me as someone who's public health trained and very much trained in terms of looking at that hierarchy of evidence, and there is value in that, but actually we absolutely need to recognise a wider breadth of what we consider evidence. And I really do think we are starting to see a shift in that, in terms of systems really starting to look at lived experience and bring stories in, which of course help to shift hearts and minds as well. Thank you. It's been a fascinating session, and I wish we could stay for longer for more discussion, but we have just 2 minutes left. So just to draw the session to a close today, I wanted to again offer my extreme gratitude to the contributors that shared their work and their presentations on their projects this morning, and to our champions, who some of whom you've heard from today, but all of whom will be following us throughout the next 9 months as we take this work forward. And one final ask to you as participants to return to the Slido to just share final thoughts on the final question. Thank you to all of you again for spending your morning with us for this conversation. And I do hope that many of you will be able to join us for future webinars, and we also have an in-person event. So the next is a webinar on the 9th of September. Dates for the others I see have been shared in the chat, but they will also be published on the Wahoon website. So if you go to Wahoon, and then there's a program section, and you'll see Cynefin listed there, and all of the details about booking on will be available from there. So thank you all again. I hope you have time for a little bit of movement or creativity or whatever makes you feel well today, whilst you attempt to stay cool in the heat. Diolch yn fawr.